Has Halo Infinite really solved sprint? How about the weapon spawns? I finally got to play the Halo Infinite beta, and I want to share my thoughts. I feel that there are many things that people have simply missed about this game, things that nobody else has picked up on. So what was my experience with Halo Infinite? Well, first of all, the issue was even getting it in the first place. The site was down again, but luckily there were other ways. I didn't make it into the last flight, so I thought I would opt in for both PC and Xbox to improve my chances of being selected. I thought it was the right thing to do. For every previous MCC flight, I got an invite for both Steam and Xbox, but this time around I only got an invite for Xbox, meaning I had to dust off my old 2013 model Xbox One to play the game in stunning 720p at a cinematic 30 frames per second. I know, it's my fault for signing up for both, but it would have been nice if they kind of communicated beforehand that you could only get an invite for one platform. Oh well, I'll just untick Xbox in case there are any future flights. That's not a big deal. But all that aside, I still got to play the game and I got to test it out extensively. How was it? Well, it was good, but it's not perfect. Did I not call that this game was Halo 2 all over again? The vehicles have a doomsday state, and yeah, some people are celebrating the return of weapon combos, but I guarantee you this shit is getting patched. It's way too powerful and way too easy to do. The gunplay feels good, the animations are fantastic, and the audio is near perfect. The equipment is fun, if a little sparse. The game is balanced quite interestingly. They've really focused in on differentiating weapons by range class. Assault rifle destroys up close. Sniper is hard to use and only really useful at long range. The battle rifle seems specifically tailored to only be useful at mid range. It's outclassed at close and long range. But even with all these shiny new additions, I can't help but feel that it's Halo Infinite compromises. So enough of this summary, let's dive into the game. First order of business, and the one you all likely want to hear, sprint. Did Halo Infinite solve sprint? Well, not really. Halo Infinite has infinite sprint and you can only sprint forward. Your shields regen while sprinting again. Now you can ready your weapon almost instantaneously out of sprint. And this applies for every weapon. You can sprint with the flag and you can reload while sprinting. The sprint speed is only about 9% faster than the base movement speed. It also gives you access to the slide, which allows for some extra mobility. As it stands, this system solves the problem of having to design maps around multiple movement speeds. It also alleviates the issue of sprint breaking the flow of combat, nor does it rob vehicles of their power as much as it did in, say, Halo 5. I think reloading while sprinting and sprinting with the flag are good changes for this reason. Flow of combat is important, but it doesn't really solve sprint, because to be honest, it can't. I want to highlight this video that got a ton of views explaining Halo Infinite Sprint, specifically one line. He describes Halo Infinite Sprint as being the perfect compromise. This strikes me as somewhat oxymoronic. How can it be perfect if it's a compromise? And therein lies the issue with many of Infinite's systems. 343 are in a difficult situation, at the crossroads between market research and Halo's fundamental design, and it's impossible to genuinely please both camps. On the one hand, you've got the typical shooter audience who just want something familiar, they just want sprint. Then you've got the average classic Halo fan who cares about Halo's design, and who is usually left holding the bag after decisions made to court the other group fail. Sprint being barely faster than base speed is a compromise from previous games, for the sake of Halo's design. But that raises the question, why have sprint? It's so Halo can appeal to that camp of Call of Duty players and general shooter fans. I think 343 has figured out that the desire for sprint isn't really informed by the effect it has on gameplay, rather by more aesthetic tastes. It's something they're used to. COD have sprint, Halo no have sprint, sprint is fast, fast is good, therefore Halo bad. Sprint is basically just an animation to almost fool you into thinking the game is faster than it is. But this solution is ultimately a compromise, and it's impossible to genuinely please both audiences. It doesn't solve sprint for classic Halo fans. The maps are still stretched out, incredibly so. In fact, you have the fastest movement speed of any Halo yet. It's just that the base movement speed is a lot quicker. But that doesn't make the actual gameplay faster. Halo 3 competitive matches were actually found to be a lot quicker than Halo 5 competitive matches. Also, sprint still breaks flow. It just does so to a lesser extent. You still can't shoot while sprinting. All sprint really is a 9% penalty in movement speed if you're moving backwards or shooting. I don't think this will really solve sprint for the other camp. Sure, it gives the visual feedback that the sprint fans desire, but I think people will quickly realize that sprint doesn't confer much of a benefit. When you turn off those speed lines, you really see just how slow it is. It's just a placebo. It also looks at a surface level like a downgrade due to lacking other abilities that were in Halo 5. Because of this, I've seen people asking for a faster sprint speed. Now look, I know all you nostalgic Halo 5 fans just want Halo 5 too, but here's the thing, Halo needs to evolve. It's not 2015 anymore, and Halo 5's gameplay is just outdated by modern standards. I mean, doesn't it just make sense that a super soldier would be able to shoot while running and run backwards? I mean, it's in the lore, right? Look at these cutscenes where Spartans are shooting while running. Trust me, I've been playing Halo since I got back from my first tour in Nam back in 1970. Trust me when I say this stuff is innovative. Look, I understand the difficulties 343 face. It's not easy to do what they do. I said before that Halo Infinite is a kind of watered down Halo 5, and I stand by that. It's not the synthesis of new Halo and Halo 3, it's Halo 5, but with the Halo 5-iness simply pared back where necessary. The slide does give you some cool new skill jumps, but it's less than what you could do in Halo 5. It also raises the question, do forges need to worry about where they place ramps and inclines on maps? I get that's not a huge deal, but it's certainly a consideration. When coming from another first-person shooter to Halo, you tend to find yourself mashing the sprint button automatically. Right, it's not like Halo is the only game I play. It seems like the wider market want sprint. To quote the internet misattributing Henry Ford, if I had asked people what they wanted, they would have said faster horses. People don't always know what they want. Sometimes it's better to make a firm decision and risk alienating some people than trying to please everyone and leaving everyone disappointed. Another case where I feel they have a pared back version of a poor feature is with the control-based weapon spawns. I brought these up in a previous video on Halo Infinite. Control-based spawns are very much not based. What they are is essentially tying the respawn timer of a given weapon to its usage by a player. Basically, some weapons will only respawn once all their ammo has been used up or it is despawned off the map. This system was in place in Halo 2 and was rightly criticized in this Luke Smith article for creating an environment where players could be conferred a significant advantage, not because they win battles or are better, but because they got to the power weapons first, and more importantly, only had to get there first one time, and they could hold on to it for the rest of the match. Once they had the weapons, they could hold on to them and basically lock out the enemy team. This system is returning in Infinite. Now, when I said this, people rightly pointed out that this doesn't apply to every weapon. That's true, but this isn't the complete no-cap ratio, wake up and choose violence, caught in 4K, ownage moment some seem to think it was. I saw a lot of justifications for the system that explained how the system was limited, but very few explaining precisely what made the system good. And here we go back to the compromises. 343, instead of dropping this control-based system entirely, instead opt to limit it. Now, there might be a good reason for including it, but I can't see it. It's like having a preference between cow shit or bird shit. I'd prefer neither. It raises the question, why? Weapons like the Bulldog, the Heatwave, the Ravager, and the Needler are tied to this system. The Needler especially, it for real low-key no-cap kinda slaps in this game. These mid-tier power weapons are meant to act as a bridge between loadout weapons and true power. They're meant to empower you to challenge more powerful positions. Think the shotguns or the maulers on the pit. This just means one potential avenue for combating map control is cut off while it's in use by one team. You can really see why it's infinite compromises. Now, what really compounds this issue, sets it into ludicrous levels, is that the shock rifle is tied to this system as well. The Luke Smith article specifically points out how control-based spawns make vehicles overpowered, because the team occupying the vehicles can grab all the counters to the vehicles off the map. The shock rifle is one of the key anti-vehicle weapons in Infinite. It's meant to be used as an EMP. I foresee this happening. Teams will dominate in vehicles because they grabbed the shock rifle off the rack first. Without one of the key counters, it's hard to fight back. Not to mention, vehicle spawns are control based. Let's talk about some other aspects. The visuals. Halo Infinite looks great, though it has the Microsoft art style. There must be some internal tool all their dev studios have. It looks good even on my terrible last gen hardware. 343 have done a good job with the console versions at least. This definitely feels like the same Halo engine, just with many aspects rebuilt. One throwback to Halo 3 is the bloom. Not reticle bloom, the visual effect bloom. Sometimes it gets so ridiculous, especially on maps like Bazaar. I'm not sure if you can turn it down on console, but it's just absurd as it stands. The armor outlines aren't great either. They add visual clutter to solve a problem which was already solved by red and blue coloring. Basically, they're solving a problem that doesn't exist. It's clear they're doing so to accommodate their microtransaction system. I've said this before, but the armors feel a little too derivative. They literally use many armors from Halo Reach, and the new armors aren't too inspired besides notable standouts like the Mark 7. I know, before we had the issue of wacky helmets that went against Halo's style, but now they look too much like things we've seen before? Make up your mind! Look, the issue with Halo 5 was simply that the helmets sucked. They were ugly. Halo Infinite does look better. Another issue is the clutter. It feels like there are more icons on your screen than ever before. The outlines exacerbate this. I think they should really do more to really decide what information is necessary to show, because right now it's kind of an overload. Speaking of clutter, the audio. I said the audio was near perfect. Well, it's got some issues. Namely, like I said, the clutter. Remember in Halo 1 when you'd occasionally hear Jeff give a relatively subdued status report? Now he has the most exaggerated performance yet, with two other voices joining in the mix as well. The Spartans have like a Pixar voice acting. Did some damage! And the writing is all Borderlands writing. Like seriously, I don't want to hear these annoying quips when I play the game.
Oh my.
And I know you can turn them off, but then you cut off an important source of game info. You disadvantage yourself. Perhaps add an AI that has a little more restrained delivery. Also, despite the high quality audio, some of the sounds are kind of, I don't know, soulless. Classic Halo weapons were built off stock sound libraries, but they were modified, engineered in a way that gave them such a unique profile. The classic Halo weapon sounds are instantly recognizable. You really hear this in the needless sound. The bleeps, the bloops, and the pings are still present and a little annoying, although definitely toned down from Halo 5. And the soundtrack? The post-rock rendition of Halo is cool, but we all know it really needs more progressive rock. I want a 20-minute organ solo for the main menu music. Now, what about the maps? The maps are not great, except for Behemoth. So far, that's excellent, both conceptually and in design as a kind of scaled down sand trap or relic. The other arena maps just aren't very good. This is kind of why we need Forge. They feel too simple. But old Halo games had simple maps as well. There's more to it than that. None of them stand up to the greats like Guardian or the Pit. 3-lane design is especially noticeable. 3-lane design has never really been a huge Halo thing. Maps like Livefire and Bazaar are literally 3-lane maps, like out of CSGO or Call of Duty or something like that. It doesn't really work with Halo. Perhaps that's why some people seem to like those maps, because they were familiar to people coming from other games, like COD or CS. Bazaar was fun in objective modes like Capture the Flag, but kinda sucked in Slayer. I think the core issue is that they have a map philosophy that's similar to a certain era of Call of Duty maps, specifically around the time of Infinite Warfare. I want to link this video that kinda summarizes this design style, but basically the maps use very blocky, even, uniform cover that's useful for both sides. They are literal blocks, like it's Minecraft PvP. Nothing like the natural curves of Covenant maps or the angular cover of Forerunner maps. It seems like they're too afraid to give one part of the map supremacy over another. Think of the hill in Valhalla. It was hard to hold. You were vulnerable to many angles, but if you could hold it, you were given significant power, ultimate power if you will. Sightlines over the entire map, as well as ownership over the Spartan laser spawn. I want to compare live fire with Guardian, specifically the sniper tower. Look how much of the map you get vision over in the sniper tower in Guardian. You blatantly have an advantage over most foes. You have cover and high ground, as well as sight over most of the map. The angular railing provides you powerful cover, and uneven cover. It benefits you more than it does someone attacking. But you could be attacked from multiple angles. There was a grav lift leading to you. Enemies could get there from the front or from the back. It was a hard location to hold, but very much worthwhile to fight over. Compare this to the sniper tower on live fire. You have these giant blocks covering most of the map. You don't really have a line of sight on most of the action. It's not really a position worth fighting over. At the same time, even if it were a worthwhile position, it'd be a lot easier to hold. There's only one ramp up. You could also get up there with grapple or repulsor, but that's contingent on its appearance on the map. Basically, like there's risk and reward in vying for power weapons, there should be risk and reward in vying for power positions. The maps just feel kinda flat. There's no focal points. Come to think of it, the world in general feels kind of static, flat, two-dimensional. Gimped grenade jumps, no gravity on the gravity hammer, like what do you think it's for? No teammate collision, you can't see your feet. It just lacks a lot of the little details that make the Halo world feel alive. The physics are subtly different. It's hard to pinpoint exactly what, but a lot of people say it feels like a 343 game. It's the momentum, the inertia, you kind of stick to the floor, where in previous Halos you could kind of bounce around and deflect off surfaces. But it's not like there aren't any cool interactions. The repulsor and grapple equipment are awesome, really fun to play around with, and 343 did a great job. But the equipment system feels lacking. Outside of those two, none of the equipment is really that interesting. You forget you even have it, and it has a very limited selection. You know they're trying to pad it out when they add active camo and overshield as equipment. I get the idea, but it was kind of pointless considering most people just use it as soon as they pick it up. Anyway, it's just an annoyance. The weapon sandbox is good, though I can guarantee the assault rifle is getting nerfed. It's too useful at mid-range. I like that it's useful, but it can't be too powerful. It shouldn't melt at mid-range. They need to find a good balance before they're forced to nerf it into the ground. The commando is good. The sniper is incredibly hard to aim with, basically zero aim assist, which was hard for me playing on controller. I have no clue if it's bad on mouse. It's more strange that similar precision weapons like the skewer and shock rifle seem to have more aim assist. The battle rifle is downgraded a lot. I do like that it's not completely dominant, but it shouldn't lose to an assault rifle at mid-range. They still need to focus more on that close, mid, and long-range weapon dynamic. The pistol was very well done, useful but not too powerful. The plasma pistol feels like a subversion of what we expect. It doesn't EMP anymore. This is something people have come to expect, and it wasn't exactly something people complained about back when it was added in Halo 3. And I'm sure you could find an obscure example, but generally people were fine with it. The dynamo grenades seem very overpowered as well. They have so many uses. Not only do they strip shields and do damage over time, not only do they do area denial, not only do they tell you exactly where your enemies are, not only do they last on the map and chase your enemies down, but they EMP vehicles as well, like an armor drain and a perpetually exploding plasma grenade all in one. Yeah, these are getting nerfed. The Ghost is also deathly overpowered. It's got so much armor, fast infinite boost, accurate, fast and fast firing cannon projectiles. It beats a warthog for God's sake. Like the assault rifle, I like that it's useful, but it's getting nerfed. I'd prefer they nerf it sooner rather than later, where they'd have to nerf it right into the ground. Perhaps they could nerf the projectile speed. The pulse carbine was also a bit of a sleeper hit. Maybe that was just me playing on controller, but I don't see why people say it's trash. It's a long range gun, and it aims for you. And I know people say it's the successor to the storm rifle or the plasma rifle, but I feel like it's dumb to try to categorize weapons in this way. It's a new weapon that fills a new role. Yes, it answers an existing question, but it's ultimately a new sandbox. The skewer is satisfying. A bit more powerful than expected, it one-shots ghosts, but it's still better than the Spartan laser in terms of balance. It puts them into the doomsday state. I like that drivers have the doomsday state warning whenever they're critically damaged. I also like that you actually have to aim for weak points on the vehicle, like the motor on the Warthog, to actually do more damage. It's still a marked improvement in my eyes over the Spartan laser. Overall, I had fun. But the maps were the biggest disappointment. They feel too reminiscent of the broader industry. Hopefully the full game has better maps like Behemoth. Remember, the Halo 3 beta had us playing on Snowbound, so it is too soon to judge. Also, Bazaar is literally Dust 3. Search in your heart, you know it to be true. I also found that I frustratingly get killed behind walls. Like the bullets are just arcing around the corner. Maybe it's desync, maybe it's magnetism. Whatever it is, other people have been noticing it too. Halo Infinite will likely be good. The best ever? Unlikely. But we'll see once we're getting a steady stream of content releases. If you want a high quality stream of content releases, subscribe to Shredded Nerd. You get in-depth videos like this one popping up in your inbox all the time. Thank you all so much for watching, and goodbye.